Hello, 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 and welcome to the College of Creation. My name is Dan.
And my name is Michael.
And we are Dungeons & Dragons DMs who love to homebrew items, spells, creatures, and features for D&D. But what we do here is we make new homebrew every single week based on prompts that we get from our listeners and our community. And the prompts that we got this week was very simple. It was just an item or a weapon called the Lover's Quarrel.
A great prompt.
Playing with wordplay, playing with unique puns and takes on known phrases. Always a fun time. We've done this before with the fighter's block, which I feel like I netted similar results today to my fighter's block.
Same. My layout today is very similar to my fighter block layout.
I thought you might go in the direction of something like the to and from framework, but I wasn't sure.
I thought about that. I had two items in mind, both of which ended up in the final product today that could fit into that, and I didn't want to just force myself into making two other things. Mm-hmm. So I went with a more loose, not very well tethered together pitch today. So it's a little bit all over the place, but I am happy nonetheless with what I brought.
I feel like actually looking at the progression of my homebrew style and everything from the fighter's block to this one is actually a really good snapshot of how this show and doing this exercise has changed the way that I approach homebrew, right? I think you look at my fighter's block stuff and it was all like pretty practical and pretty definitive, but didn't necessarily break out into like sort of a creative and unique and slightly more adventurous builds. And I think over the course of this show, you will see with these creations that I definitely have the core idea of where those fighter's block things came from still there. Yeah. But I've branched out into slightly more, just a slightly different method and a slightly different approach. And I love it.
That's good. I can't say the same about myself.
This isn't the example where
this is not
growth.
The right.
This
prompt.
Is not the one.
Yeah. I think if you look at maybe my spores barbarian versus my astral barbarian, that is a better snapshot. I think I've become much better at concisely applying mechanics and technical verbiage than I used to be. So that's where all my growth has been. This is so similar to my fighter's block. It is almost identical in theme and style.
I love it.
But maybe that's just saying that I was at a place where I was comfortable before.
Yeah.
And everybody has different places that they can grow. So I'm glad that both of us feel in a little bit better of a spot than we were a couple months ago in some regard.
Indeed. I did have a curiosity before we jump into the actual creations that struck me when playing a one-on-one session recently.
Okay.
So I've mentioned I have been running D&D at a local library, and because of the nature of it, it's sort of a drop-in, register in advance, but it's a drop-in game, right? There's not a campaign with the same structure, right? We're not expecting everybody to show up, and if not everybody can show up, we cancel, right? So we go on whether or not everybody's there.
Sure.
And at a past one, I just had one kid show up from the group that normally does, and use that opportunity to just do a one-on-one session. And this particular player, when building the character, added chess set proficiency. I was not about to try and play actual chess with a child, but I applied a different set of mechanics to chess because a lot of the playing card and gaming set proficiencies do not have set rules for them for how that game ought to be played, right? So what we did was I applied a rule set around chess that I think could be applied across a number of different types of games just by changing perhaps some of the wording and perhaps some of the skills involved. All it is a more complex version of rock, paper, scissors.
Okay.
You can attempt to play deceptively using
Mm-hmm.
trickery and trying to bait your opponent into bad moves by tricking them. You can try to play intelligently just by like having strategy and a strategic mindset and just approaching it with the basic strategy that you've learned to play this game with, or you can play reactively using insight to read your opponent's moves.
Yeah.
And so each one of those overcomes another one. Not entirely, but it suffers a penalty if someone is playing with a style that runs against yours.
Right. Gaming sets are always such a strange thing because we've talked a lot about mechanics that exist within D&D that are really mechanic-less. Even in the new 2024 rules where tools are expanded and there are very definitive uses for things, gaming sets are still kind of like,
yeah,
you just have them. Like they're in your inventory and you can use them if you'd like, but it's up to you or your DM to decide together how you play, if you know how to play, etc.
I've heard of a lot of cool versions though. At some point I would like to compile all of them and be able to like kind of pick from a jar of like, here's some games of chance. Cool. What are you proficient with? Dice? Great. We're going to do this because that's a fun and exciting way to do it. So I always like hearing about people's like carnival games or gambling games or things like that.
Mm-hmm. I did have I had a street bowl game that I made one time. Like a kind of find a ball under a cup type of deal, but it was many bowls. It was like a 5x5 board with bowls overturned, and the party was able to bet on whether they could find a specific item underneath or whatever. And the gimmick was the person who was running this game, for every 10 gold the party bet, the less things they could place under the bowl. So you started if you have 25 bowls on the board, there are 10 of them that have a prize underneath. And for every 10 gold that the party bets, you take one of them away, and the party doesn't know that at first. So the higher you bet, you kind of lure them in with low bets.
Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So you bet 2 gold or whatever, and there's 10 prizes. There's a pretty high chance, it's like a 60% chance or something like that you get a prize.
That's how they get you.
Coax them in and get them more comfortable, and they bet higher and higher until there's nothing underneath. And there were plenty of times where I got players that were just like betting hundreds of gold. They're like, there's like, I've gotten a prize every single time. I think there's just something under every bowl. And then they would bet like 400 gold, and I would take their 400 gold because there's no prizes left. It's 25 blank bowls. There's nothing there. That was not necessarily a very intuitive way to interpret existing games, though. It's just rather exploitative of my players.
A little bit. But that's fun.
Oh, all in good fun, though. Yeah, everybody was okay with it. Yeah.
Well, Michael, shall we get into the actual meat of the episode here?
Yes, absolutely. I pitched first last week, so why don't you take it away? What have you made today for the Lovers' Quarrel?
Like I said, I had a lot of ideas almost right off the bat. I was thinking about obviously the nature of a quarrel and the multiple definitions of it. And so started to go down that road, but I thought I had so many ideas. I had truly too many ideas, and I ended up making 4 things. 3 of them are items. One of them is not. The first one is very straightforward and very much like the sort of base version of like what I can imagine being a real item that follows this naming convention, and then it kind of gets progressively a little bit further beyond the pale, and then the final thing that I added, honestly, just this morning, was an item that really doesn't fit the naming convention very well, but it was a thought process that I ended up moving down as I created other things.
We love.
So I'll go through them all. These are the lovers' quarrels. They have no thematic cohesion whatsoever.
That's all right.
That's just how it goes. But we begin with the lover's quarrel, which is a weapon. It is a light crossbow, and it is rare and requires attunement. You have a +1 to attack and damage rolls with this magical crossbow, and when you hit a creature with this weapon, you can choose to forego its damage roll and instead force the target to succeed on a DC 13 wisdom saving throw, or be charmed by you for 1 minute. This effect ends early if you or one of your allies deals any damage to the target.
Great.
You know,
it's perfectly kind of serviceable weapon, yeah.
Basic, very serviceable. You're foregoing damage in order to add an effect. This could be very useful if you are hiding out from a target that you want to be friendly to you, and you can shoot it from a distance. It has no knowledge of being hit by this weapon. It's a very Cupid's bow sort of thing.
Yes, yeah.
I like to include this sort of very basic version of something for our listeners, because I think a lot of what we do here is kind of way out there in a lot of ways, and also comes from, I think, both of our very deep understanding of the mechanics of the game. So we have that level of comfortability that allows us to stretch really far at times. So I like to add sometimes just a simple thing to let our listeners know that, like, that is serviceable. That is homebrew. That is something that you could have come up with. And it doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. I know we make very complicated things here, but like, this is great homebrew. Like, I would be very happy to put that in front of players. So just as an example for folks, you know, your homebrew doesn't have to be like the most creative thing you ever pulled out of your brain. It can be something that is sort of first thought, best thought of what you think of when you think of Lover's Quarrel. Done.
Well, I think a lot of it stems from doing it every week too, not just knowledge of the mechanics, but also making something that's very rudimentary like this every week. I would just feel like I'm making the same thing over and over again,
right?
No matter how valid that thing is. It makes me think of there's an interview with Matt Berry. Do you know who Matt Berry is? The actor Matt Berry. For those of you who do not, he most famously is a cast member on What We Do in the Shadows. He's known for like the New York City, like he says things so crazy, right? And in an interview, somebody asked him where he gets his ideas for how to say lines, because they're just so crazy. Like, nobody actually speaks like that. And he's like, I get so tired of saying the lines the same way that at the end of an acting day, I just go off. Like, I get so bored doing the things over and over again that I just I try and keep myself entertained with how I say these lines. And sometimes that's how I feel about homebrew. It's like if I've made a lot of weapons or a lot of monsters or whatever, I end up with something crazy because I want to figure something else out for my for my own entertainment sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, monotony can be a great feeding ground for creativity. Actually,
correct.
Like it's very interesting how the psychology of that works. But you do something by rote enough times, you start to think about more creative ways to do that same thing.
Yeah.
All of that is to say, this brings us to our second item, which is a different take on the Lover's Quarrel, and the lovers part of this is certainly in quotes. So this is an item that a player could have to try and gain favor, or once they have gained favor, perhaps with an NPC, and want to give a gift of affection, but there is a sinister edge to this. So this is a wondrous item. It is very rare, and it requires attunement by a creature who receives this item as a gift. So this unique token of affection bears a sinister secret. You can give this item to another creature as a gift. If the target accepts and attunes to it, it gains the following features. The wearer can't be targeted by divination spells or perceived through magical scrying sensors unless it allows it, and the wearer can cast Detect Thoughts once per day using the item. Now, as the giver of this gift, you gain the following features, and the recipient has no knowledge of these properties. You can target the wearer with divination spells and can perceive it through magical scrying sensors, and the target automatically fails any saving throw against such an effect. You can also not be targeted by the target's Detect Thoughts spell. Instead, the target sees or hears whatever thoughts you choose.
That's huge.
And then finally, when you hit the target with an attack roll while it is attuned to this item, it is an automatic critical hit. So this is like a get somebody in your good graces, like woo an NPC that you want to get close to, give them this, and you have an in always. They cannot know what you are thinking. You can always know what they are thinking, where they are, who they are talking to, all of this stuff.
Wild. And
when it comes time for you to turn that knife, there it goes. This would be a horrendous thing to give to a player on behalf of an NPC, but I would love it.
First the lover, then the quarrel.
First the lover, then the quarrel. Exactly. Now, this next one is not an item. This next one is a monster. And this came from, in my initial drafts of like coming up with ideas, a bit of autocorrect and a bit of mistyping and fat fingering ended up with an autocorrect that just made me laugh. So I made it. This is the lover squirrel.
I love it.
This is a small beast. It is unaligned. It has an armor class of 12, 11 hit points. That speed should be 30 feet. I don't know why it's 18 feet, but it's not very strong. It's sort of dexterous, not a lot of constitution, very low intelligence, medium wisdom, but then high charisma. It has an 18 in charisma.
Interesting.
It is a beast that is proficient in acrobatics, perception, and performance, and it understands common, but it can't speak. It has a single feature called Too Cute. When a creature targets the squirrel with an attack or harmful spell, it must first make a DC 14 Wisdom saving throw, and on a failed save, the creature becomes charmed for 1 minute. A charmed creature can repeat this saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on a success. When you try to attack it, you might be too charmed by it to actually attack. And then it also has actions. It has a nuzzle action, which basically allows it to attempt the same saving throw, right? Force you to make the same DC 14 Wisdom saving throw if it's within 5 feet of you, and you become charmed if you fail. And then it has a charm puppet action. The squirrel can command one creature charmed by it to immediately take a reaction and move up to its speed and make one weapon or spell attack against a creature of the squirrel's choosing.
That is wild. That's the funniest thing about this to me is that the squirrel is the one choosing the target, but the squirrel has a -3 intelligence. So it just like it is basically at random choosing these targets.
More or less, it's at random. More or less. It's so just like funny. Anything not itself, anything that it like perceives in its prey brain as the biggest threat, right?
Get your sword away from me. I don't care who else you hit. That's so funny.
I just think it would be delightful to like have this as a familiar, or just to like be in the forest and just have maybe a half dozen of these just like poke out of the trees. You're just like, oh that's so cute. And then it gets so close to you and it nuzzles you and it charms you, and then it forces you to like swing on your friend. You're just like, oh, this is actually a disaster. We need to kill these things. Oh, we can't. There you go.
Incredible.
That's the lover squirrel.
The lover squirrel.
You just can't help but love it.
Right.
And then we have these, and this last item that I created was a spur of the moment, last minute addition here.
Sure.
And it was based around the idea that I was like, I wanted to create something in my early envisioning of this that like was was like a quarrel against this like charm effect. You know, when I think of lovers, I think of something like the charm effect, things, you know, around that in video games and broadly, right? You know, when something
Yeah.
has a lot of, you know, love attached to it, it's likely going to charm you or do something like that. So I was like, okay, what can kind of like resist that and like fight against that with the quarrel part of it. And so I came up with a very simple set of items here that vary in rarity. These are condition talismans. So these are wondrous items, and they require attunement, and each of these powerful obdurative talismans protects against a certain condition. When a creature or effect would subject you to the listed condition while you are wearing the talisman, you instead gain the listed benefits. So a charm talisman makes you immune to the charmed condition, and when a creature or effect would force you to be charmed, you instead gain a bonus to AC and all saving throws for 1 minute equal to your charisma modifier.
Yeah, that's great.
The Fear Talisman makes you immune to frightened. When a creature or effect would force you to be frightened, you instead gain a bonus to all attack and damage rolls equal to your wisdom modifier. Poison Talisman makes you immune to the poisoned condition, and when you would be poisoned, you instead gain temporary hit points equal to your constitution score. And then finally, the Stun Talisman, you are immune to the stunned condition. When a creature or effect would force you to be stunned, you instead gain the effects of the haste spell for 1 minute.
Interesting.
So all these things would hit you,
Opposites,
and you would instead basically reverse them. You reverse the effects, and you're less easy to be charmed. You are the fear turns to sort of a rage-like effect. The poison, in fact, bolsters your health, and the stun, in fact, makes you move faster. So,
yep.
Just little tokens that could be useful or fun as little passive abilities for your players if they are coming up against something that's likely to give them status conditions.
I like these. I think they're really well balanced. I think that they're super useful, especially if you have some type of foreknowledge about what your player or what your party as a player are about to go up against. These are great things to slap on before you go into a dungeon that is more specific. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Love them.
Yeah.
Simple and effective.
Little quick final thought this morning that I threw in there, but I had a good time. I really like the second Lover's Quarrel with the sinister twist to it, and I love the squirrel. So
Great. I like it all.
well, what did you bring today, Michael?
I brought 4 items and one creature. If you would, please open your document. I present to you several iterations. Several iterations of the Lover's Quarrel.
Amazing. Go ahead.
Yeah. I had to physically stop myself from reacting when I opened your Lover's Squirrel, because I wanted to see your reaction when you opened mine. We will get to my Lover's Squirrel in a second. We'll start instead with my first Lover's Quarrel. This is singular tense, the Lover's Quarrel, LOVER''S. This is a weapon. It can be any martial weapon. It's uncommon. It requires attunement by a character with a weapon mastery. The first feature here is called Insignificance, and this plays on the idea that a Lover's Quarrel often starts rooted within something small, arguing over the dishes or somebody being late or something like that. It's an insignificant thing that can blossom into a more serious fight later on. Sometimes the smallest problems give you the most fuel for battle. Once per round, you can give yourself advantage on one attack made with this weapon against a creature with a challenge rating of 5 or lower. All attacks against creatures with a challenge rating of 20 or higher with this weapon are made at disadvantage. So at the beginning, this weapon is much more effective against smaller problems. Once you get up to larger problems, that mindset just doesn't work, and you're playing at disadvantage regardless. This also has a non sequitur feature. This kind of plays on the idea that Once you're within a lover's quarrel, it's very easy to kind of deviate from your original idea, and you just end up not knowing what you're really fighting about anymore. It can be all too easy to change tactics in the middle of an argument, even if that new tactic doesn't make sense. Whenever another creature hits you with an attack while you are attuned to this weapon, you can use your reaction to change its mastery property to that of a different weapon with which you hold mastery.
Ooh.
Its original property resumes at the next dawn. So it has to be a mastery property that you know from another weapon that you have mastery over. So you can't pick from all 8. But it's great for a low-level fighter. Fighters get 3 of them at level 1. So if you have 3 options, you can kind of switch between the 3 anytime you get hit as a reaction. So it allows you to kind of dance around different tactical options within battle.
That's such a cool feature that...
Thank you.
I mean, not to go on another huge tangent or anything like that, but I love that. Simply because it is an example of, as new mechanics are now being written into the player's handbook and Dungeon Master's Guide and all of this stuff, that just means there are more things to play with for homebrew. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there is an item in the new rules that does allow this adaptive shift of weapon mastery properties. Yeah. I think that's such a cool idea for a magic weapon to have a floating mastery property.
Thank you, man.
That the character holding it can choose to switch at will. I just think that's a very cool way to be like, hey, there are new mechanics. Let me homebrew with them. Very, very Thank cool. You. Love it.
I made it first, Wizards of the Coast, as of December 16th. It's Michael Barlow's trademark.
Michael Barlow's
this
trademark,
feature,
patented feature. Michael Barlow's. Nobody steal it.
Moving on to my second lover's quarrel. This is plural lovers, so this is LOVERS apostrophe quarrel. This is a potion. It's very rare. This oily rose-colored liquid is brewed using a piece of hair or skin from a humanoid creature and while chanting a specific word or phrase, which is written on a tag attached to the bottle. Upon consuming this potion, you are charmed by the creature whose hair or skin was used and have the charmed condition for 1d4 hours. Within that time frame, if you hear another creature say the word or phrase written on the bottle tag, you are no longer charmed, and you are instead frightened of the same creature for the duration. All subsequent times you hear the word or phrase from the tag, you switch between the charmed and frightened conditions.
Yo, gang, if you're running Curse of Strahd and you don't have Strahd put this in the party's wine, I mean, that's so good. If Strahd is puts this in the wine glasses and then is just I am the ancient, I am the land. Now you're frightened of me. That's incredible. That's top
and it's very rare. There's no save. So for 1d4 hours, you are subject to this condition.
You just are.
Yep.
Oh, that's so good. Oh, I like this. I like that
Thank you.
A lot.
Thanks, man. I think this is my favorite of my 5. Just for applicability alone, it can be used in so many different ways.
I mean, it feels very similar to my sort of second one, where it's it has great effectiveness from an NPC standpoint to really do some drama to the party. But
really
also
would never want to give this to a party member.
In a situation where a party member does have this, though, there's a great use case for it.
Mm-hmm.
In a heist or some other situation, right? That they need to get in with a certain NPC and it might turn bad. This is the perfect thing you would want to have.
Several hours of fear
in that
can be
interaction.
Huge.
That's great. That's huge.
And snap them back and forth between the two. It can be very, very effective.
I like that a lot. That's very, very fun.
Thank you. Moving down the list to this bottom one here. This is called the Quarreling Lovers. This is a wondrous item that's rare. Each of the stuffed dolls in this matching pair has a button on its back. You can hold the button down for up to 1 minute and speak into the doll, recording everything exactly as it was said.
Nice.
If the 2 dolls are positioned either within 10 feet of each other or more than 30 feet away from each other for more than 30 minutes, they will play the recordings in unison until they are separated or reunited or destroyed. So they have to be separated if they're within 10 feet of each other, reunited if they're more than 30 feet away, or if they are destroyed.
Huh.
If one doll from the pair is destroyed and not the other, the surviving doll will scream in agony until it is provided a new partner doll or it is also destroyed.
This is horrifying, Michael. This is terrifying.
So I'm thinking you have 30
like
minutes, right? This has a built-in 30 minutes of prep time. If you record and then sit these dolls next to each other outside of like a window of a thieves guild or something, a building that you're looking to infiltrate, you have 30 minutes to set all of the other pieces of your plan in place. And then these dolls are going to go off and they're going to either start talking to each other or scream or make sound effects or whatever you put into the dolls. And they are a 30-minute timer on an infinite diversion until they are destroyed or separated. I think the agonizing scream may be a bit too too intense, but I had to think about what would happen if one of them was gone. What would the other do?
Sure, yeah.
They need the pair is the whole dynamic.
Yeah.
So I'm not upset that I included that either.
No, I mean it's horrifying, but it does make sense, unfortunately.
Right. Especially if you do it purposefully and then just unleash that scream on, maybe I'll play with some deafening or something too. So it's more than just a mindless scream. There's some benefit there. Moving down my list, I have also created a lover's squirrel.
Right,
just like Dan did. This is also a small beast. Mine is neutral alignment, any neutral alignment. Armor class of 12, 3 hit points, a climbing and walking speed of 30 feet. Notably, it has a pretty decent dexterity and intelligence score, so both plus 3. Everything else is 0 or below. It has dark vision out to 60 feet, and it doesn't know any languages. It is just a squirrel running around in the world. A higher intelligence squirrel running around in the world. It has a few abilities here. The first one is called Neutralizer. Until it is reduced to 0 hit points, the squirrel always emits a 10-foot radius emanation of pheromones. Whenever a creature enters or starts their turn inside of the emanation, it must make a DC 12 Constitution saving throw. If the creature fails, on its next turn it can't take the attack action, use a damage-dealing feature, or cast a spell unless its only purpose is to restore hit points. If a creature succeeds on the saving throw, it's immune to the effect for 24 hours, and the squirrel's movement does not provoke attacks of opportunity. So it can just run through a battlefield and neutralize a whole bunch of players, and depending on their saves, it could massively turn the tide of battle at very little cost to the squirrel.
This is a great familiar. This is like a top tier warlock familiar.
There are so many options that are open that are non-combat based with this. I mean, the DC 12 is kind of low, so it kind of loses its effectiveness as you level up. Yeah. Although with a warlock familiar, I suppose it could be rejigged a little bit to develop alongside your proficiency bonus, like a player's proficiency bonus.
Maybe with Pact of the Chain sort of
if you have something specific to it.
You could add something like that. But yeah, I mean, DC 12 Constitution is not going to be a problem for a lot of things at higher levels. But you never know when something's going to roll a nat 1.
Right. Right. There's always a chance. And that's it. That's my lover's squirrel. And then I also have my last item here is a departure from the other side. It is a quarrel, but this is a loafer's quarrel. Loafer. Loafer's quarrel. Instead of a dangerous point, the tip of this crossbow bolt is covered by a small puffy pillow resembling a miniature loaf of bread. Okay. These bolts deal no damage. But when a creature is hit with one, the pillow tip bursts and covers the target with bright white all-purpose flour. Until the flour is properly washed off or removed, attacks against this creature can't suffer from disadvantage. And that's it.
Nice.
So you're not giving yourself advantage. You're just making it a little bit easier not to have disadvantage on one target.
I might also add the stipulation that the character or the creature can't turn invisible, perhaps.
Yeah. I suppose how magical is the flower? Because maybe flower would count as something you're wearing.
Yeah, that's the question, I guess. Yeah.
I can see magical baker's flower that can't turn invisible. That'd be funny.
I can see it either way.
Yeah. That's the very rare version. Enhanced loafer's quarrel.
When you said loafer's quarrel, I wasn't thinking loaf of bread. I was thinking like loaf, like being lazy, loafing around. I don't know what that would be, but
I thought of this name a couple days ago, and I just couldn't narrow down what I wanted it to be. My first thought was actually shoes, like loafers' shoes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure.
And I couldn't figure out how to make it work as a set of armored shoes. So I ended up going with this because we did talk a little bit about the actual initial definition of Quarrel is a crossbow bolt.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose I didn't want to rehash my other ideas that I thought were better suited for my weapon that I made or the potion.
I like that potion so much. I'm absolutely going to use it. Yeah, that's a big winner for me.
Yeah, because if you're brewing the potion yourself, you have complete control over everything that goes into it.
Yeah.
Or if you have somebody brewing it for you, you could say, yeah, this is my skin or my hair, and this is exactly what the words are going to be. You have complete control. I also really like the idea of just like finding this on a shelf, like in an artisanal shop.
Ooh.
Just like finding it on the shelf and not knowing who it's made from.
Yeah.
Just one day, one of your party members comes across somebody and they're like, frogs. And they immediately are frightful of this stranger that you've never met
Interesting.
before.
Yeah. Huh. I mean, I think it's got a lot of potential all across the board. And again, I love the willingness to immediately start playing with new mechanics in homebrew. It's very, very cool, very fun, and very appreciated.
Well, thank you, man. The game that everybody needs to see now is our two squirrels journeying together.
Yeah.
I want to play a game where two players play as squirrel folk and they play as these stat blocks. That's the game I want to run now.
I'm not opposed, certainly. Well, Michael, shall we roll for next time?
I think so. I rolled last time, so why don't you go ahead and roll for next week's prompt?
Excellent. I've got my D20 out here. We've got our big list of 20 prompts with some more in the hopper. But if you've got a homebrew prompt that you'd like to send our way, we would love to give it a shot and try and make it. Send it over to us. You can reach us at our email at collegeofcreationpod@gmail.com, or you can come on over to our Patreon. If you subscribe at the free tier, you get access to all of the PDF versions of everything we have created thus far and everything that we will create in perpetuity. And if you want to, decide to become a patron, we really appreciate you. And you get access to a couple bonus things, bonus chats with Michael and I, and exclusive stuff that we decide to put out. And you can send us your ideas there as well. Michael, here we go. That's a 16.
A 16 is a warlock pact bound to armor.
Ooh.
That is from Comrade Shark on the Discord. A warlock pact bound to armor. So I would assume that is a pact boon and not a subclass.
I think it could go either way.
Yeah.
Hex Blade is a weapon bound warlock.
Right.
Could do an armor bound warlock, or could just do boons, maybe, or pact boons.
Interesting. Maybe a combination of all of them. Yeah.
Maybe. Maybe we can create subclasses and pact boons for that subclass.
Yeah.
or
That's what I was
something
thinking.
entirely different. I think it's up to you.
A pact bound to armor. Interesting. Because there are already several things in place that can kind of help warlocks be a bit more beefy. So how do we step around those things and get to something specifically armor-based and not like mage armor or armor of Agathis type of things?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's not spell-based. It is strictly dealing with armor. Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm interested in this. I think that this could be a lot of fun. I think we might end up with things that are really, really similar. If I'm honest, because this feels like a less broad prompt than some of the subclass prompts we've had before. But I do think even if we come with things that are sort of similar to each other, this is a great opportunity for maybe you and I both to be willing to come with something that's maybe at 80 or 90%, and maybe
I was thinking the same thing.
If we do land something really similar, maybe I can say, hey, your 6th level feature is cooler than my 6th level feature. Maybe we can combine these ideas into something that is cool, right?
Yeah.
But I think maybe we don't do a totally live creation episode for this one, but maybe we
definitely bring our own stuff.
We can talk about it in sort of terms of like, would these two things work together as a single creation?
Take some of the features a la carte and move them around a little bit.
Yeah. Let's see what we can come up with.
A Warlock Pact bound to armor for next week.
Michael, in the meantime, you have anything to say to the people before we say goodbye?
I do have something to say to the people this week before we say goodbye. As always, it is the 16th of December today. The holidays are rapidly approaching, regardless of what you celebrate. I am incredibly lucky that I really enjoy the holiday season. I think it is the best time of the year, and I say that with the knowledge that it is a very difficult and sometimes devastating time of the year for other people. I consider myself incredibly, incredibly lucky. If you are one of those people that, for familiar reasons or religious reasons or just societal reasons in general, you can find chosen family within your communities. D&D is certainly one of those, but it is not remotely close to the only one. It's okay. It is a human necessity to reach out and ask other people for help. If that's something that you feel like you need to do this time of the year, please try and do that for yourself. The only thing worse than going through a difficult time of the year is going through it alone, and I don't wish that on anybody if it can be helped. So please reach out to your friends and your chosen family if that's something that you need to do. And I hope that going into this holiday season, it's a little bit brighter than it has been for you in the past.